Here. Okay, hi and welcome back, everyone. We are here again today with Cindy Tadje, and she is following up with us on her recent experience with clinical MDMA, followed by 5 years of practice and improvement with Ayurveda and self-care treatments at home. Cindy is really noticing just how effective these major changes to the nervous system can be once the body is physically ready for it. So Cindy, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again today.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. So excited. It's just like, it's weird because it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it's been forever since we last talked.
You've gone through a big, huge change. It's like your whole emotional state has, fast forwarded or made years of progress and improvement and healing in a very short time. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You really deserve it. You have put in so much effort into this, and to get to see you make these leaps and bounds now, I think is fantastic.
It feels good. It feels good to have it really sink in and create lasting changes. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about the progress I've made. And yeah, let's jump in.
Yeah, well, we'd love to hear how the whole event went, and what you enjoyed out of it, and what your experience was, and kind of how you're doing now in the integration phase.
Okay, so it was good. I was gonna kind of address what MDMA is. I think that would be helpful to the audience that doesn't know about this. Not everybody knows about MAPS. MAPS is awesome in the fact that they've been doing this research for 20 years. So I'm just going to give a very, very short description of what MDMA does to the body. So it's an empathogen. It increases serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine in the synaptic cleft. And what that does is it enhances the extinction of fear memories through increased expression of BDNF, which stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor, in the amygdala. So the amygdala is the alarm of the body. It's the thing that alerts us if there's a threat. So it kind of calms that down so that we can go into different processes of how we process information without all the fear connected to those memories. Does that make sense?
It does. It sounds like it really helps old imprints of trauma kind of slough away or be removed, or at least allow the person to get past any sort of stickiness or any long-term effect that those traumatic memories might have.
And I love that you use the word sticky, because that's what it feels like. And that's what it looks like to me. It's like this black goo that doesn't allow me to access something deeper within me without my amygdala saying, nope, we're going to stay in a hypervigilant state. And so for me, I stayed safe by being in a hypervigilant state. And so that was what I loved about MDMA, is it allowed that people pleaser, the perfectionistic part of myself, the doubter. That was huge. It allowed my doubting self to just kind of dissipate, and all of it just kind of felt like the sticky goo just kind of dissipated, and it kind of allowed for this like heart expression to just come out and let me just soak and marinate in it. And by expressing that, I'll tell you what that does. So what it does is it opens up the oxytocin dependent critical period of neuroplasticity that typically closes after adolescence. So this beautiful space came when and I could feel it. It feels like your heart is literally opening up. And it felt kind of scary to me, because it felt kind of like I was out of control, but I was so grateful to have two highly professional facilitators with me to just remind me to breathe through it. Or like, just breathe through it. So that was really, really, really helpful. But that allowed for this oxytocin to just kind of run through me. And I felt it in my gut too. Like I felt my gut, it got really cool, and it just kind of felt like it became more spacious. And it was almost like the clamping, like the goo that had been like holding me back for so long was finally just blasted away with oxytocin. And it was like, okay, let's let it do its magic.
That is so beautiful. And it's that level of change, physiological change that the person can experience that is highly coupled with the nervous system and the emotional state and the hormones that drive emotions, right? That's kind of the area where it's actually difficult for Ayurveda to make a lot of quick progress in people. So this is a really fantastic example of how Ayurveda, along with the correct kind of clinical psychedelic interventions, can go hand in hand to really work on the body and the mind and bring both of them together.
Yeah, and it was really cool because my body felt strong. Like I felt strong going into it. And I think with how you've prepared my body and you've helped me so much with the integration of all these other aspects, I really felt like I trusted the process. I was ready for it. And so the other thing that is really beautiful about MDMA is that it increases your window of tolerance. And do you want to talk about what window of tolerance is?
Sure.
Okay, window of tolerance is just your capacity to self-regulate your emotions. And there's been certain practices I've done in Ayurveda that have helped me regulate my emotions with the oils and stuff, and we can talk about that later. But what MDMA is able to do is it increases that window of tolerance for your ability to feel everything without judging it. And so all the sticky stuff that has been suppressed that I haven't wanted to really look at, I was able to tolerate and revisit and process the traumatic content without becoming overwhelmed by this hypoarousal or by disassociation. And so that was a beautiful part of it as well.
Amazing. Sounds like you really got to be in the present moment and hopefully enjoy it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It was incredible. In fact, when I was I could understand why people like to do this when they're like at raves and parties, because the whole time I was just like dancing. I'm like, wait, we are all just playfulness. Like, I think, why do we take everything so serious? I'm like, we are here to just play. We are here to just, I mean, you just love everything. You even love the people that hurt you and you don't judge them. And you're like, oh, they were probably hurting. And you have this like abundant sense of compassion for yourself and for the people around you. And for me, it was such an amazing feeling to be able to feel that without my nervous system clamping back down and saying, this isn't safe to do. And it allowed that space to stay open. My amygdala did not respond.
That's amazing, because over the years, as we've been working together, you've done so much work in the area of your protector parts and the inner critic, and being aware of all those things, recognizing those things, knowing that they're there. But it's been so hard for you over the years to just kind of close the door and say, get out of here, leave me alone. They just don't go away, right? You need something like this to pull yourself out of your usual stuck, trapped state and see, hey, actually, it doesn't have to be that way. I want to be the person I really am. And I think this is giving you that pathway.
Oh, it's been exactly. And something that it's interesting because I have felt some of the formulations or the recommendations that I've done through Ayurveda have given me glimpses of it, have given me glimpses of that feeling. Some of the ghees have given me it's like a microcosm to the macrocosm. And I felt like MDMA was like the macrocosm, right? And so that was the other thing that I wanted to mention. My relationship with nature was like so much more amplified. And I think that's one thing that really drew me into Ayurveda. I mean, one of my favorite things about school of thought, or the microcosm to the macrocosm. That is something that resonates so deep with me because we're not that much separate than nature. We are nature. And that was really, really amplified in the MDMA experience. Like I could see the flowers and I saw how beautiful nature was. And I kept saying, like, us humans, like, we're just delicate like flowers. Like, why would anybody want to hurt a flower? And why would we want to, like, well, what are we doing here with this relationship between nature and us? I'm like, we're really not separate. And that's why I love Ayurveda so much, is because it's built on that, correct?
Correct. It is the science of life that, researchers and sort of the ancient seers and the ancient practitioners of this were able to understand through their sense organs, through their interactions with the natural world and the state of things around them. They came to understand the laws of nature especially so with Ayurveda in context of how life exists or how humans exist in living form, and how to maintain that living form and really optimize it. So to tap into that while you're going through this experience, and to feel that ability to kind of expand your emotional self-regulation and see the truth into everything, I think it's such a beautiful experience to have. I wish everybody
I know, me too.
there.
That's what I said. It was so funny when it was first hitting, because it first of it does is it's a big dopamine hit, a big dopamine and norepinephrine, and then the serotonin rushes in. So it's like this huge surge, and that's kind of when, like, at first I felt the party going on in my body, and I was like, we all need to wear flowy clothes. Why do we wear such tight clothes? I couldn't figure out blazers. I couldn't figure out why people wore blazers. Anyways, because it was just like so free flowing, right? Anyways, and unfortunately, I did go through some of my trauma, but it was almost like I was able to be in an inner tube going down a crazy rapid river. And I was able just to observe it. And I was like, whoa, that's intense. Okay, but I was able to keep going. And before, when I would start to do some of these healing modalities of yoga, meditation, breath work, even, taking different formulas, I would start to go down the river and I would stop. It was almost like my dorsal vagal response was like, nope, we're not doing this. And that couldn't happen. And so I kept being able to ride the river until I made it to the peak. And then I got to flow on the serotonin for a really long time. And that's when the beauty came. And I realized, like, everything is beautiful. Like, I realized the beauty within me is outside of me as well, but also what's outside of me is inside of me. And I think that was the biggest treasure, like the biggest gift I got from the experience, was this inner beauty that I so have wanted to feel and to be at peace with.
That's amazing. And that, I think, probably goes hand in hand with what happened to your inner critic too. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So the inner critic, so that's something really interesting, and it's something that I've been working on in therapy, and I have been doing therapy along with Ayurveda. So I wanted to make that clear. I didn't talk about that last time, but I have been doing therapy in combination with Ayurveda. And I have a fabulous therapist who has been here with me for 5 years, just like Jess has. And one of the things that I've been working on is shrinking the critic. And so the way that the critic kind of shoots up, it comes from the superego. It merges. So I'm just going to read what this is from a CPTSD book. So I'm just going to read what this says, because it will just help identify what the inner critic is, because I think we all have it to some extent.
Sure. And for those who don't know, CPTSD, right, is childhood post-traumatic stress disorder, right?
Right. Yeah, complex. So it's complex, and it's usually because of childhood, but it could be from a lot of different things, but it is different than PTSD. In that complex PTSD, it's like PTSD is like a one-time event, or like a car accident, and then you keep kind of going back and revisiting that, right? Or where complex PTSD is maybe something traumatic event that happened in childhood, and it keeps reoccurring. So you don't really have a base to go back to. For PTSD, you can go back before and you can kind of reframe. With CPTSD, there's nothing, it's harder to go back to it because it was reoccurring.
Yes, it's going to be a lot more difficult to unravel, especially later in life. And then if this oxytocin thing closes off at the end of adolescence, people are sealed up with their trauma and just kind of stuck in that cycle and reliving that over and over again.
Right. And you're always operating from this space that you're not quite sure what it is, because you've suppressed it, or you've repressed it, or oppressed it. I don't know, whichever word you want to use. But there's been so many, like, that sticky stuff you're talking about, it becomes sticky. And so you build this container and you operate over here. But this will eventually, it just keeps coming. You have to turn around and eventually look at it, or else it makes you sick. And I think that's what led me down this path of long healing. I don't know. Anyways, so the critic, this was one of my favorite parts about the experience, was the shrinking of my critic. So the critic does come. And so I'm just going to read what it says. Early childhood abuse causes the child to merge with the superego, the part of the child's brain that learns the rules of caretakers in order to get and maintain acceptance. So it happens if you feel like you were wrong, or that shame, like, oh, who I am is wrong, you just keep spiraling down into this like toxic fear and shame, that then that energy continues to create this black and white thinking of the inner critic. And that's the part of us that's always like, you should have done this, you shouldn't have done that, you should be like this, you should do that. And so it develops the perfectionistic part of ourselves, that if I am smart enough, if I am pretty enough, if I do this good enough, then maybe I will feel acceptance. And so that was a part that I created, was to be, I had this perfectionistic part of myself, developed a little bit of OCD in that space. And then also the people pleaser. So if I fawn to these people, if I do everything that they tell me to do, if I could please them, then I will feel acceptance. And so this has been a huge part of my healing, is shrinking this critic. And in MDMA, it was so funny because, you know, it's a psychedelic. So you see things that aren't normal. And it was like this fox-like character who had quills up, and it was like a horny toad on the back, just this hard armor shell. It was all flared up. He was on the back. He had his two arms up, and he was just mad as heck. And then eventually, like, I just turned around and looked at him, and I was like, you don't have to be so spiky, you know? And it was almost like this permission for him to like retract his quills. He got down on all of his fours, and he just seemed tired, and he just started walking away. And then some song, because music's a huge part of this experience, which I loved. He like turned around and he started singing this song to me about why he was there. And he had this soft underbelly, and I just like went and snuggled with him. And I'm like, oh, my inner critic was there to just protect me. And so you develop this relationship that there are no bad parts. There are no bad parts of us. It's all beautiful.
That is so amazing. And that actually goes right along with Ayurvedic principles as well. Even some of the most basic principles, like the doshas, right? They're not good or bad necessarily, but they are the dials that if we turn them towards health, they will generate health. If we turn them the other way towards disease, they'll generate disease. And so it really, I think it comes a lot down to how we perceive these. What is our position on it? And what do we choose to, what do we choose to believe, right? Do we want to be positive about this? Do we want to see it as these are bad parts of ourselves? And that's never going to really lead anyone to any beneficial outcome.
And I think it has a lot to do with our society at large, because we are all striving for perfectionism in some aspect, and we want to feel good. So we're like, well, what's going to give me the fastest result? Blah, 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 blah. And I think I was like that in the beginning of Ayurveda. I'm like, well, just give me something that's going to fix me. And you kept being like, no, like, Cindy, it's this like continuing will that like ever goes, you know. And now my relationship with that has totally softened. And I know that this is a practice. It's a lifestyle. It's exactly what you said, but now I'm not so mad at my vata when my vata is out of control. You know, before, you know, in the very beginning, I was like, my vata's too high, I got to get it down. But now I'm like, oh, hello there, vata. What do you have to teach me?
Exactly. Yeah, you've come so far in terms of changing your perception and getting out of that, you know, one pill for one ill type of mentality, and just give me some sort of quick fix to go address something. And where those types of approaches simply allow the person to continue doing something that's harming them in the first place. And so when we stop and we slow down and we really take the time to say, hey, where are these causative factors of disease coming from? Now, with something like complex PSTD and childhood trauma, you know, those types of causative factors are way outside of that child's control. And those are types of things that should never, frankly, happen in the first place. But there's many causative factors of disease, that food that we choose to eat every day, how we prepare it, how we cook it, or whether we don't cook it at all, what time we do everything, what our daily schedule looks like. All of those seemingly small and insignificant changes roll up into a big, enormous positive impact when we do them collectively for long enough. And that's why I think, you know, once you started integrating these changes in these habits little by little over the years, you built up a huge reserve of health.
Yeah. Yes.
You strengthened your body, and you got to the point where you're at now that you can do something like this.
And it's so interesting because like as you were talking about that, I was like thinking about, we'll just call them ACE scores or whatever, because what is that, right? Adverse childhood events,
Experience,
right? ACE, yeah, experience, yeah. They're saying in research that if you have higher ACE scores, like, yeah, you have more chronic disease. But I was thinking about in the 80s, and if you think about, if we rewind and we go back to the 80s, like everything had monosodium glutamate in it. Everything had aspartame. It was like the fat-free, sugar-free. How can we make fast food at home from 2 cans, like a can of cream of mushroom soup, a can of green beans, put it in the microwave, put it in a dish, put it in the microwave, and there's dinner, right? So that probably was not adding any value to my body. And over time, that built up some problems in my body as well. So I feel like exactly what you're saying, like we've got to treat this body. It's not just the events that happened to me, but it was also, and bless our parents' hearts, they didn't know all of this. They were just excited that dinner was easier to make. I mean, do you remember that? Did you have that?
Totally. Hamburger helper.
Yes.
Top ramen, the entire giant box.
Oh my gosh. Just like you just crack it open and you just eat the ramen like raw. Like, oh my gosh, we used to do like cream cheese and put salsa on it with like chips. I don't even know. I know, right? Like that's just like yeah, anyway. So yeah, and the Tostino's pizzas, do you remember those too?
The microwave ones?
Mm-hmm. Like who even knows what were in those? I don't even know if it was meat, spam. I don't even know. Like it's pretty crazy what we grew up on.
Totally. Yeah. And then on top of that, nobody had a perfect childhood.
No.
Very few people even had a good childhood. So
I know it's so true. Like we were all in survival mode. And if you just like go back and you look at time, like that's the other thing I realized, and this was huge for me. The blame doesn't start with me. It doesn't start with my perpetrators. It doesn't start with my situation. I mean, like we could go back and back and back and back. And so for me, what MDMA really showed me too, it's like, I know it sounds so cheesy, but it's just like, forgive them, because like they were just doing the best they can, just like I'm doing the best I can. And so here I am now, and what do I want to create going forward? And I think that was huge for me, because I think it's so easy to be like, oh, it's big pharma. Oh, it's like what they're putting in our food, and it's our government. They're not regulating it right. It was just like, I think everybody's doing the best they can with what they have. I know that there might be some people that have greed backing them, but whatever. I don't want to get into that. But you know what I'm saying, right?
Totally. And it's fantastic that you can come out of that mindset, because I think all of us have gotten wrapped up in that at some point or another, trying to, play the blame game and look for excuses and reasons. But really all that's showing us ultimately is that we have all this anger underneath about something. What is it? What are we, what are we redirecting that feeling of rage towards? We're finding some kind of cause and going fighting after it. And it can be, somewhat of an effective outlet, but not really. It doesn't address what's going on in the root. But to get to this point where you ultimately can see and accept everything for what it is as it is, not good, not bad, not pretty, not ugly. It just is what it is. And what next? Now what? What's the best thing that I or you or anybody can do, right, to participate in their own life? Why are we here? What is your goal?
We're here to play, Jess.
Awesome. Let's start right now.
I know, right? Well, it's so funny when you're saying this, we're talking about duality or whatever. At one point I was like, I just started giggling and I couldn't stop laughing. And I said, I think CNN and Fox, they all need to take MDMA and have a conversation. And it really is, because we all have our opinions and there is duality. And I think that's one of the things I love about Ayurveda is how it talks about the gunas of the mind, and also the gunas with just positive and negative of everything, like cold and hot. And
that's exactly how we can see
flow.
Yeah, and understand the world around us. It's the opposites. So when something is on one end of the scale versus the other, that's the way that we can notice the difference. Everything's relative. Everything is relative.
And that is something huge that I've learned from you, and always being able to be neutral and look at both sides. It's both. And I think that's what happened when that inner critic finally shrunk, and my doubt. my doubter was definitely attached to that inner critic, and my doubter literally vanished into DNA. I don't even know what happened to it, but I watched it vanish and I was like, thank you. I'm tired of you controlling my life. But this idea of opposites, and that it can be both. And it's okay. And I think that's something that I've learned so much through Ayurveda is it can be both.
Awesome.
And that gives,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, it brings self-responsibility back to me, that where am I, like how much am I ingesting, I don't know, too much cold stuff, right? And what is that doing to my body? And just because I like it or whatever, I don't know, something like that, where it's like, no, I can have hot stuff too. It's just this component of cold and hot even. And just realizing cold's not bad and hot's not bad. It's when is it appropriate?
That's it, 100%. Knowing when to do what is really the key.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, it was a beautiful experience. And then afterwards, it stayed with me for a long time. I think I'm really sensitive. And the next day, as I, because the medicine stays with you a few days. And the next day I went home, I still felt, I couldn't stop giggling, actually. And that was a beautiful part of it. And I got home and I was still in it. It was amazing. I loved like seeing my kids, seeing my husband, seeing my puppy. It was just, everything felt fresh. Everything felt new. Everything felt like it wasn't filtered through this lens of this inner critic that was criticizing everything I did. And it was so refreshing. And then my stomach did start to hurt really bad. And I don't know if you could explain like what was going on, but my stomach definitely started hurting. And I started having a lot of cramping too.
Yeah. Well, this provides such a deep change to the nervous system and the gut-brain connection, the hormones that drive, right, emotion. And usually those hormones are kicked off by food consumption as a primary trigger, not the only trigger, but one of the most important ones. And so, interrupting kind of that normal action of driving these hormones with the MDMA experience is going to mean that everything else in the body now has to catch up to this new state. So we see a very similar type of thing happen in Panchakarma when a person undergoes a traditional classical Panchakarma procedure, which would either include Vamana or Virechana and internal use of medicated ghee and increasing portions, possibly even up to a total intake of like a half of a liter. So that's a whole big, huge topic in and of itself. But what happens in that process is the body becomes so clean afterwards, the mind has to catch up. It's like the mind doesn't recognize the state that the new body is in, the clean body. Here, you almost have the opposite effect, or kind of the reverse effect, where the mind is now kind of cleaned out, or the emotional state is reset in a way to give you your perspective, your personality, yourself as you are today, not right colored by or influenced by all of this traumatic history. Who you are at this moment. Your body doesn't recognize that. Your body says, hey, wait a minute, you've been having these crazy thoughts every 10 minutes for the last 25 years. Where did they go?
And it's almost like my body wanted to go back to that. My body was like, what's going on? Like, we're used to releasing this at this time. And, and I'm so grateful that I had Ayurveda this whole entire time, because I know that I've been titrating my body to heal. I can't wait to do Panchakarma now. I should have been doing it at the same time.
We can't do them exactly at the same time, but that is a whole other area of research that needs to happen, is what happens when we piggyback these and we do them 6 months apart. I tested this on myself last year and it worked phenomenally well. But we need a lot more than just a couple of anecdotal case studies to know for sure. But so for your situation, getting home and feeling, the stomach discomfort, digestive discomfort, and that stuff, part of the other side of that too is that now, you may even be experiencing sensations that wanted to express themselves for all these years and never got a chance to, that you weren't able to notice before.
That actually makes so much sense, because it kind of was like, and also like even an emotional component of it, it kept coming in waves too. Like there was like it was all that good, but then there was exactly what you're saying. It's like my body was kind of like, wait a second, what about this? We'll throw this at you now. And like a big wave would come, and I was like, oh, I got this. I can do this. I've got this. I've got the mental capacity to be like, show me what you've got, And so I'm not saying that it was like perfect after, I've definitely integrated a lot of different parts of myself that needed more work. But then that's why when I talked to you and I was like, okay, my stomach, it really hurt. It was cramping.
Yep. There's a lot of questions that we would want to look at, things that we'd need answers to really understand if we want to try to pinpoint exactly why, the day of the experience itself, did you eat anything? How much fluid intake did you have? Did you have a bowel movement? What was your sleep schedule? So when those things get off, then it's more likely that the system is also going to respond to that as one part of it. But definitely the whole intervention itself is probably the primary disruptor here.
Yeah.
And the discomfort isn't necessarily a bad sign. It's a sign of recalibration.
Oh, I love that.
Right?
Because there are no bad parts. Except for monosodium glutamate and Campbell's in the cream of mushroom soup. I don't think that's good.
Probably not too much of it, at least.
There you go. Not too much of it. There you go.
But yeah, when we did catch up soon after your experience, I think we met probably 5 days or so after. Maybe the maximum was a week.
Yeah.
And yeah, we looked at what you had already figured out in those couple of days, which was fantastic. You took the
oh, sorry about that. My daughter just decided to come in.
Hello. You took all the tools and the knowledge and information that you had learned up to that point about what to eat when you're not feeling well, how to care for yourself when you're not feeling well, and you applied a lot of that. You made some delicious homemade soups.
Oh my gosh, the soup, that was a savor. I found in one of my recipe books some Satwick soup, and I just did a ton of vegetables and chicken. It was like heaven. It was so amazing. And it just helped me. It helped recalibrate.
There you go. Yep. It helps to settle everything, and it lets your body now catch up to the new space that your mind is kind of living in and behaving in.
Exactly. And then you definitely helped. Yeah, it definitely helped my stomach. For sure. I don't know.
Having good food and good lifestyle habits, those are the two initial foundation stones. Without those, we actually are going to have a very hard time using Ayurvedic formulations and getting them to work properly. And that's because Ayurvedic formulations, unlike most Western medicines, actually need to be digested, metabolized, absorbed, and assimilated. And so they have to go through the gut's process. And if the gut isn't processing correctly, the formulations aren't going to work. So you did it the right way by starting out with taking a few days to ease back in with a very light, easy to digest, hot, freshly cooked diet, following the right lifestyle guidelines.
Yep, made sure I went to bed. And that was good. Like I made sure I went to bed. I did my Abhyanga in the morning, and doing my Abhyanga in the morning was magical. Like it just felt extra nourishing. So just, taking the time and really like I felt like I was honoring my body more. I felt like I was honoring where I was more. And as I did that, and Abhyanga has always been such a lifesaver for me because it's helped soothe my nervous system. It's given me that ability to stay calm throughout all of this process the last few years. And I'm really grateful. I'm so grateful for Abhyanga. And that is a lifestyle choice that I have chosen to apply to myself. And it has had beautiful benefits. Like it's one of my favorite things now. And before it felt so overwhelming, but now because of the benefits outweigh the time that it takes, it's like I prioritize it.
It
And
certainly helps when you enjoy it and you feel that improvement rather quickly. Naturally, if you want to be in good health, you're going to gravitate towards those things that are helping you get closer to that healthy state.
yeah. And yeah, I love the oil massage. It's like the one thing I tell everybody, just get some nice warm coconut oil or whatever that is, and like love yourself. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful gift. That's one of my favorite things. Um, and then there was something else. The sleep thing. Oh, motivation. You know how it's like been hard for me to like get motivated to run, and just to find that like spark. That's the other thing that it really helped as well. Is
Awesome.
like the motivation came back. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
exciting. And now, my amygdala is unfortunately like it's been 3 weeks. It's been 2 weeks. I think, gosh, time is very strange for me right now. But in that time, I've definitely gone through waves of processing and integrating. So grateful to have Jess's help to help my body so that as I go through these waves, it just is like, I got this, I'm strong, I can do this, So that's been so helpful because it does feel like I'm in a more relaxed state. So it does feel like what you've helped me with is actually, it's working on a different level. And I'm noticing that it's working on a different level.
What are you noticing?
I'm just noticing the post-digestive effects. Like I'm noticing when I take the formulations, my body seems to be just like more relaxed into the moment. Like it just feels like everything's working properly. I don't know how to explain it. I feel clearer. I feel a lot more clear. My brain fog it doesn't feel as intense. My stomach feels a lot more relaxed when I eat and after I eat. And so then when I take the formulations, it extends it. Like the formulations keep extending this period of like calm and relaxation. In fact, my therapists were very surprised that I was able to extend the state. They were actually surprised by it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder if that also is a function of having used the ghee formulations.
I think so, for sure. Because the ghee, when I take the ghee, it's like that presence comes back more easily.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's something I was really excited to tell you about. but I can tell my amygdala is getting a little more sensitive again, and so I'm super excited for next week because I'm just excited to clear out some more sticky stuff.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think we'll probably stick on with the same formulations that you've been doing. I'm just taking a look at it now, unless you've noticed anything feels odd or uncomfortable, or you want to change or add anything in.
No, I actually love what I'm doing and then I love it. I love it because all the things are working right for my body and for how I'm able to communicate with you now that I'm actually more in touch with my body. I feel like after we talked, I was way more in touch with what was going on. And so by being more aware and conscious of like how my body was actually reacting was so refreshing because before I think I had so many numbed out parts that were just numb because of this frozen state I was in of fear. And so now that seems to have dissipated for a moment, I've been able to really feel into different parts of my body and able to communicate with you to get the correct formulations.
Perfect. Yeah, that's incredibly important, especially when we're working online like this. The people who work with me who find the most success are the ones who can be present in the moment, be aware of what's happening, and be a very authentic observer to their own self and their own state. And then, of course, be able to communicate that in
Yes.
as effective a way as possible. It's not going to be perfect, but
and yeah, and what's also so interesting, it's like like diet culture and how diet culture is, for me, diet culture has been very negative in my life, and so to feel like I have to return and report that's so funny. That's like a Mormon thing too, like to return and like talk to the authority and be like, am I worthy of like being free and feeling great? It's like my relationship with you, even like I feel like I'm like, no, she's really here to help me, like she really cares, and this is something that like I feel lucky that I get to be able to be to be in your care. And I feel like I don't feel like you're going to get mad at me if I don't do it right. You know what I mean? It's just like, these are suggestions. Take what you can, but these are suggestions. And for me, that's been like a huge healing. I guess that's been really healing for me, because I've been in a space of so much shame because I'm doing it wrong. And so being free to be like, to express to you, because I'm more in touch with myself, because that fear is not there, has really helped my body mind complex. It really has. And it's made me realize, like, Jess is really here to help. Like, she's really here because she's smart as heck, but really, you're like the most intelligent person I know. But
I think you must have met a few good ones, at least, over at MAPS.
Whatever. No, you are so intelligent, but I'm in good hands. I'm in good hands, and I feel lucky.
That's awesome. That's such a good position to be in. And you've come so far, Cindy. It's incredible. If I think back 5 years ago at some of our first sessions, our initial sessions.
Embarrassed.
No, you should be so proud of yourself. You've made so much progress.
Yeah, no, and I know I have, and it's a process, and no judgment to where I was or where I'll be tomorrow. It's just, I'm here now, and I feel so much better. It's so nice, these formulas and the lifestyle. I love it all. I love it all. I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
Thank you for being committed and sticking with it and doing it and enjoying it and having fun with it.
Yeah. The only thing that there's still like pressure, but I think it's just because I've been lazier. Like, there's pressure in my stomach, pressure in my belly, my low belly.
Like a bloated feeling, or
it feels more, it doesn't feel like bloated, it just feels like pressure, because like bloated goes out. So it feels like it's squeezing.
Okay, can you,
like a squeezing that's like down, like below my belly button.
Okay. Is it right down below your belly button?
It feels like it's more like in my bladder. It feels like it's around my bladder area. It just kind of feels like it's like kind of squeezing.
Have you ever had kidney stones or anything like that?
Yes. It does not feel like that.
Okay.
But so maybe it's just adjusting, it's recalibrating. I don't know.
Sure.
But the ashwagandha arista is helping. That helps it. So I'm just doing that.
You can try applying some oil and heat over the area as well.
Right. I never did that. That's what I forgot to do.
So even if you have something as simple as castor oil, something like a castor oil pack could be helpful. Try to do it away from food. Don't do it within 2 to 3 hours after eating, because that's going to disrupt the sort of circulatory work that's going on after a meal is consumed. Do the first thing in the morning, along with your Abhyanga, or maybe.
Can I do it at night before I go to bed? That's when it's usually there.
Yeah, you can, or better yet would probably be to try it about an hour before dinner, once your lunch is digested.
Okay, I'll try that. But yeah, other than that, everything's working great, and I'm super excited.
Awesome. Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, we are going to keep working on the formulations, and every couple of weeks we'll do what we've been doing of updating them and cycling through different ones to keep working on different layers. But I think as you go through these next 2 experiences, it'll be best if we just address whatever comes up in terms of keeping your body up to speed with the way that your neurological system is changing, your hormonal system is changing, and your mind and your cognitive functions and everything else. So making sure the body is in alignment with that, I think, should be the priority as you go through it. And then once you're done, we'll look at using some of the other formulations again for, brain wiring and strengthening the nervous system overall and those kinds of things.
Dude, I'm so excited. I love this. I get so excited. Let's do it.
Yep.
Let's do it. Okay. Thank you so
Perfect.
much. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure, as always, and I hope we will be able to catch up again after your next experience and see what kind of revelations you're able to come to then.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm excited. My intention, I've already created it, is the worry monster. I'm ready to let go of that one.
That's awesome. Yeah, that would be a huge thing to overcome.
Yeah. Or just even shrink it a little bit. You know, I know we can't, I know that we don't live in a vacuum and life happens, but it's making the Mount Everest to just, you know, some nice boulder mountains. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Just
if you
shrink it a little
can, while you go through it, try to think about or find in yourself where the worry is coming from.
bit.
And if you can boost yourself up at all, try to, increase your self-confidence. Try to practice your emotional self-regulation tools and remind yourself you're strong enough to deal with these things. You are dealing with these things. You're not only getting through it, you're thriving.
Yes, that is my motto. It's like, I want to thrive. And I want, the other thing that happened, I'll end with this, is that it just made me realize that we all have all of these parts within us. And to think about a world or even a community or whatever it is, where people are operating from that space without all this ego, it like brought so much tears to my eyes to think of what we could create in a space of like collaboration through compassion and heart-centered, heart coherence. And to me, it brings me hope that this program that MAPS is doing, and it's going to get approved, that this is going to be more available to people going forward. It's going to be awesome. And I want everyone to thrive, and including myself. And that's what gives me hope and excitement for what's coming.
Awesome. Yes, we definitely all will hope for that. And
right, it's happening.
This is an amazing program that they've put together, and the amount of work and effort that they've had to do and to stick with it for these years to get this stuff through the FDA it's phenomenal. And
it really is. And the therapists are great, and it's awesome because they check in on you every other day, and then you follow up with therapy, and so that integration keeps happening. So it's beautiful, instead of just having an experience, where I know a lot of people are having these experiences because you could go get MDMA off the street, we know this, but the part that is so beautiful is the integration. And it's like, okay, what can you learn from this, and how can you apply it? Because we can think all these things all day long. It's the application that creates action, that creates change. Exactly. And so that's what I'm excited about, and that's what I subscribe to, right? And that's why I love Ayurveda, because it feels like I'm having this experience. Let's get it to sink into the body so that I can go out and thrive and create something more beautiful.
Awesome. Well, you are living proof. So keep it up.
Right back at you. I'm just a reflection of you, my friend. Except I wish I was as smart as you. One day, maybe. Anyway,
keep working on it.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Jess. Thank you for everything, for not giving up on me, and for sticking this through with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being amazing.
Okay, until next time.
Until next time. All right, take care.
Okay, bye.